All right, so have you ever wondered, like, which wizard subclass is really the top dog in 1D&D? We're going to be diving deep into that today.
Yeah.
With this awesome article by Kenny Kings from LitRPG Reads.
It's a tough question, because each subclass has its own strengths, right?
Right.
But what I think is really cool is how 1D&D takes these subclasses and kind of makes them even better, gives players even more to work with.
Yeah, and gives them new possibilities.
Yeah, and I've actually seen this firsthand in a recent game I was in.
Oh, really?
I was playing a diviner, and because of the update to the portent ability, I actually managed to completely turn around a battle that we were about to lose and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Wow.
We were up against a dragon.
Oh, those are always tough.
Yeah, and things were not looking good for us at all. But then I used portent at just the right moment.
Okay.
And I was able to basically manipulate the dragon's breath weapon attack. So it completely missed the person it was aiming for, and instead it hit this cluster of explosive barrels that were nearby.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
Nice.
It completely turned the tide of battle.
So wait,
in our favor.
Are you saying you planned that?
No, not exactly. But I mean, I saw the opportunity and I took it.
Wow. That is an awesome example of how a diviner, if you play it right, can really manipulate fate.
Yeah, it was pretty epic.
That's so cool.
So in this article, it talks about the 4 core wizard subclasses in the 2024 Player's Handbook.
Okay.
Abjurer, diviner, evoker, and illusionist.
Right.
So let's start with the Abjurer. What do you think makes them stand out in 1D&D?
Well, I know that the Abjurer is the defensive master.
Right.
They're all about protecting themselves and their allies with their arcane ward.
Exactly. And in 1D&D, the arcane ward is even stronger now.
Really?
Yeah, it scales up better at higher levels.
So they're really durable.
Oh, yeah. Incredibly so.
So if you like to be right on the front lines, soaking up the damage, the Abjurer sounds like the perfect choice.
Definitely.
Now, you already told us about how awesome the diviner can be with your dragon story, but let's go a little deeper into what makes them tick.
Sure. Well, the diviner is all about foresight and bending probability.
Yeah.
And the key to that is the portent ability, which lets you kind of influence die rolls in ways that you wouldn't normally be able to.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And the article actually includes a table
Okay.
that lists a ton of situations where you can use portent, in combat, social encounters, skill checks, all kinds of stuff.
I bet that table is like a gold mine for anyone who wants to play a diviner.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It really shows you all the different ways you can manipulate things to your advantage.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to the Evoker.
Okay.
What can you tell us about these, masters of raw magical power?
Well, evokers are all about damage, right? They're the ultimate blasters. And in 1D&D, they've got even more tools to control the battlefield.
Oh, really?
They have the sculpt spells abilities.
The sculpt spells. That sounds cool.
Yeah, so basically you can unleash these crazy, powerful spells like Fireball without hurting your allies.
Whoa, wait.
Yeah, you shape the area of effect of the spell.
So no more friendly fire.
Exactly.
It's a game changer for those big area of effect spells.
That is a huge improvement.
Right.
Yeah, no more holding back because you're worried about hitting your friends.
Totally.
All right, let's talk about a subclass that's known for trickery and deception. The Illusionist.
Oh, the masters of illusion.
Right. What's new for them?
Well, they're amazing at manipulating perceptions, creating illusions that can fool almost anyone.
Oh, okay.
And in 1D&D, the illusory reality feature is what really makes them stand out.
Illusory reality, what's that all about?
So in past editions, illusions were mostly just sensory tricks, They couldn't really interact with the physical world. But now, with illusory reality, illusionists can temporarily make their illusions real.
Yeah, the article gives the example of creating an illusionary wall to block a doorway.
Oh, wow.
Or you could conjure a bridge over a chasm.
That's crazy.
It's like taking your illusions to a whole new level.
That's amazing. So they're not just sensory tricks anymore. They can actually affect the environment.
Right. It's so cool.
That is a huge change.
And the article has this really helpful table that shows all the different ways you can use illusion spells.
Interesting.
In combat, exploration, social situations, you name it.
So 1D&D has really breathed new life into the Illusionist subclass.
Definitely.
Now let's move on to a subclass that's getting a more dramatic makeover. The Bladesinger.
Oh, yeah, the Bladesinger. A classic for players who want to be both a spellcaster and a swordsman.
Right, a favorite for sure.
And Unearthed Arcana 2025 has some big changes in store for this subclass.
I'm intrigued. Now, for those who might not know, Unearthed Arcana is kind of like a testing ground where Wizards of the Coast puts out new rules and subclasses to get feedback from the community.
Exactly.
It's a cool way to see what they're working on.
Yeah, and the Bladesinger rework is getting a lot of attention.
I bet. So what's the biggest change?
Well, one of the most notable changes is to the Blade Song ability.
I've always loved the idea of Blade Song. What's different about it in One D&D?
So in the past, Blade Song would give you a bunch of bonuses, but only for a short time.
Okay.
But the new version is more about enhancing your core abilities.
How so?
Well, it boosts your AC, your movement speed, and your concentration.
Wow.
It lets you move through combat with this incredible grace and resilience.
So it's less about a temporary power boost and more about just making you better at everything you do.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And the article highlights a bunch of spells that work really well with Blade Song.
Oh, really? Like what?
Like Shield for a quick boost to your AC.
Okay.
Misty Step for better mobility.
Right.
And even Haste to make you even faster and give you more actions.
Whoa, that sounds super powerful.
Right. Imagine this Bladesinger darting around the battlefield, casting spells, striking with their blade.
And all while maintaining their concentration.
Shut up. It's like something out of a fantasy novel.
That's awesome.
The article even mentions how it works well with spells like Booming Blade, so you can combine melee attacks with spellcasting.
Oh, that's cool. It seems like One D&D has turned the Bladesinger into a real force to be reckoned with.
Definitely.
Okay, but what about players who want to go beyond their subclass? The article talks about multiclassing too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Multiclassing is a great way to really personalize your character and come up with unique builds.
Right.
The article goes into how you can combine wizard levels with other classes like cleric, fighter, sorcerer, bard, even rogue.
Whoa, that's a lot of options.
Yeah, there are a lot of possibilities.
Let's take a closer look at each of those and see what they bring to the table for a wizard.
Sounds good.
Maybe we can start with cleric.
Okay.
What does that combo look like?
Well, a lot of wizards choose cleric because they want to mix divine magic with their arcane abilities.
Interesting.
It really opens up a lot of new options, especially for players who like being a more versatile spellcaster.
So a wizard who dips into cleric could be like a healer and a buffer and a damage dealer all in one?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's impressive. Are there any specific cleric domains that you think work really well with different wizards subclasses?
Well, if you're all about keeping your allies alive and boosting their defenses, the life domain is a good choice.
Okay.
And if you're playing a Bladesinger and you want to be even better in melee, the war domain might be a good fit.
Right, so you can get that divine favor to help you out in battle.
Exactly. There's really a domain for just about any kind of play style you can think of.
It's all about finding the right mix of divine and arcane power.
Right.
Now, multiclassing into fighter might seem a little strange for a wizard. What are the advantages there?
Well, it might seem counterintuitive, but dipping into fighter can be really good for a wizard who wants to get more involved in melee combat.
Okay.
Even just one level gives you proficiency with armor and shields and martial weapons.
Oh.
So instead of being this squishy spellcaster who has to stay way back,
Right.
you can actually get up close and personal with a sword and shield and still cast spells.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
What about those fighting styles that fighters get? Are any of those particularly useful for a multiclassing wizard?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which ones?
Well, you could go with defense to boost your armor class and make you even tougher.
Okay.
Or you could choose archery if you want to be better at making ranged spell attacks.
So even just one level in another class can make a big difference in how you play your wizard.
Absolutely.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another interesting multi-class option. Sorcerer? What do you think about combining arcane power with meta magic?
Oh, that's a potent combo for sure.
Right.
Meta magic is one of the coolest things about sorcerers.
Okay.
It lets you tweak your spells in all sorts of crazy ways.
Can you give us some examples of how meta magic would actually work with a wizard's spells?
Okay, imagine you're a wizard and you use Quicken spell to cast a big spell like Fireball as a bonus action.
Right.
And then you use your regular action to cast another spell, or maybe blast someone with a cantrip.
Wow.
Or you could use Subtle Spell to cast a control spell, like Hold Person, without anyone even noticing,
Oh, wow.
so the enemy can't try to counter it.
Those are some serious tactical advantages.
Right.
And the article mentions that if a wizard multi-classes into sorcerer, they can use their meta magic with any spell on their spell list,
Yeah,
not just sorcerer spells.
exactly. It's like giving your entire spellbook a power boost.
That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about a multi-class that might seem a little unexpected. bard.
Hmm.
What does that bring to the table for a wizard?
Well, it might not be the most obvious choice,
Right.
but dipping into Bard can be really beneficial, especially if you want to be more of a support character. Bards are all about inspiring their allies with bardic inspiration.
Right, giving them those bonuses to roll.
Yeah, and extra hit points.
That's great for a wizard who wants to help out their team.
Exactly.
And depending on which bard subclass you choose, you can get even more spells and abilities that complement your wizard subclass.
That's right.
Are there any bard subclasses that you'd specifically recommend for a multiclassing wizard?
The College of Lore is a solid choice.
Okay,
It gives you more skills and lets you learn even more spells.
that's always good for a wizard.
Right. And the College of Valor is another good option.
What do they do?
Well, they make you better in combat, and they can inspire their allies with songs and stuff.
So it's all about finding the synergy between the bard's abilities and what your wizard already does well.
Exactly. A bard multiclass can really add another dimension to your wizard and make them a more well-rounded character.
That's cool. Now let's talk about our last multiclassing option,
Sure.
one that might seem a bit unorthodox for a wizard. Rogue.
No,
What do you think about a wizard who dips into the world of shadows and stealth?
well, it might seem like a strange combination,
Right.
but it can actually make a wizard really effective in both combat and non-combat situations.
How so?
Well, rogues are experts at stealth and perception and deception,
Okay.
and those skills can be really valuable for a wizard.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, you could use your stealth to get advantage on your spell attacks,
Oh, that's smart.
sneak past enemies without them even knowing you're there,
Right.
or disarm traps with your new skills.
That's pretty useful. And don't forget about sneak attack.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Rogues can deal extra damage when they have advantage.
Right.
So a wizard with a couple of levels in rogue could use their spells to set up sneak attacks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great way to deal a ton of damage from the shadows.
Imagine a wizard casting a spell like blindness to give themselves advantage
Okay.
and then following it up with a huge sneak attack.
That'll catch the enemy off guard for
Yeah.
sure.
And then there's the cunning action feature, which lets rogues use their bonus action to dash or disengage or hide.
Right.
That's a great way for a wizard to get around the battlefield.
Totally.
They can reposition themselves, escape from grapples, or just avoid getting hit.
Exactly. So a rogue multi-class can make a wizard a lot more versatile and unpredictable.
This whole discussion of multiclassing has been so interesting.
It is, isn't it?
It's amazing to see all the different ways you can build a wizard.
There are so many possibilities.
But it's important to be strategic about it.
Right.
You don't want to spread your abilities too thin.
Exactly. You want to make sure the multi-class you choose actually complements your wizard subclass.
Right. And it should fit with the rest of your party, too.
Definitely. You don't want to end up being a jack of all trades, but a master of none.
It's all about finding that balance between specializing in your subclass and adding in a little something extra from another class.
Right. Make your character truly unique.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about multiclassing, but we also need to talk about choosing the right feats and spells for your wizard.
Oh yeah, those are essential.
They're like the foundation of your character.
For sure, they can make the difference between a so-so spellcaster and a truly powerful one.
Absolutely. And the article gives some great advice on which feats work well with different wizard subclasses and playstyles.
It does.
Let's go over some of those key feats and see how they can make your wizard even better.
Sounds good.
What are some of the must-have feats that every wizard should consider no matter what subclass they choose?
Well, Warcaster is pretty much essential if you're planning to be up close in melee combat.
Okay.
It helps you maintain concentration on your spells, even if you get hit or grappled.
That's so important for a spellcaster.
Yeah.
You don't want to have your spell interrupted because you got attacked.
Right.
What else?
Lucky is another great option.
What does that do?
It lets you re-roll a die roll 3 times per day. So if you miss a crucial attack or you're about to get hit by a really nasty attack, you can just re-roll the die.
That's amazing. It's like a get out of jail free card.
It can be. And then there's Resilient Constitution.
What does that one do?
It makes your Constitution saving throws better.
Okay.
So it's harder for enemies to break your concentration on your spells.
That's huge for a class that relies so much on maintaining concentration.
Totally.
Any other feats that stand out?
If you're playing an Evoker and you really want to crank up your damage output, Elemental Adept is a must-have.
What does that do?
It lets you ignore resistance to a certain type of damage,
Oh, wow.
so your spells always hit with full force.
That's a game changer. No more having your spells fizzling out against resistant enemies.
Exactly. All right, now let's talk about spell selection.
Okay.
Wizards have so many spells to choose from.
It's true. It can be overwhelming trying to decide which ones to put in your spellbook.
Right. That's where the article's recommendations come in handy.
It does.
It gives you specific spells to consider for different subclasses and playstyles.
It breaks it all down for you.
Yeah. So let's start with some of the essential offensive spells that every wizard should know.
All right, what are the classics?
Well, you can't go wrong with Fireball.
Yeah, the good old fireball.
It's a powerful area of effect spell that can take out a whole group of enemies at once.
It's a classic for a reason.
And then there's Magic Missile.
What's so good about that one?
Well, it doesn't require an attack roll, so you're guaranteed to hit your target.
Oh, that's handy.
It's perfect for finishing off weakened opponents or interrupting enemy spellcasters.
It makes sense.
And if you really need to destroy something, there's always Disintegrate.
Not subtle, but effective.
Exactly. Now let's talk about defensive spells.
Okay, those are important too. Got to keep your wizard alive.
For sure. So Mage Armor is a must-have.
What does that do?
It gives you a nice boost to your armor class without having to wear heavy armor.
Simple but effective.
Right. And then there's Shield for when you need some extra protection right away. Okay.
It gives you a big boost to your armor class for 1 round.
So it could potentially save you from a critical hit.
Yep. And if you want to shut down enemy spellcasters, Counterspell is a lifesaver.
That one can really turn the tide of battle.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you time it right, you can prevent a really powerful enemy spell from going off.
Now let's not forget about utility spells and control spells.
Oh yeah, those are important too.
They might not be as flashy as the attack spells, but they can be just as useful in the right situation.
Definitely. So what are some good utility spells for wizards?
Well, Detect Magic is always helpful for finding hidden magical things.
Right.
Like illusions or cursed items.
And Mage Hand is surprisingly versatile.
How so?
You can use it to move objects from a distance trigger trap safely, or grab something that's out of reach.
Those are some clever uses. And Featherfall is a classic for preventing fall damage.
Totally.
It can save your life if you fall from a high place.
Or you could use it to make a dramatic entrance.
That's true. Now what about some control spells?
Oh, there's some good ones.
Like what?
Well, Hold Person can completely shut down a single enemy.
Okay.
Sleep can knock out multiple weaker enemies.
Right.
And Web can create difficult terrain that slows down your opponents.
Those are all great examples of how you can use control spells to manipulate the battlefield.
Exactly. You can give your party a big advantage.
It's amazing how much depth there is to spell selection for wizards.
Yeah, it's not just about picking the biggest and baddest spells.
Right. You have to think about what will work best in different situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the article does a great job of explaining all the different types of spells and giving you recommendations for different playstyles and campaigns.
It's like a personalized spellbook guide.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about subclasses and multiclassing and feats and spells, but we haven't talked about how to adapt your wizard to different campaign settings.
Oh yeah, that's an important point.
Right. It's not just about creating a powerful character in a vacuum.
Exactly. You have to think about the world your characters are going to be living in and make sure they can actually survive and thrive in that environment.
Right. A wizard who's awesome in a high magic setting might not do so well in a gritty, low magic campaign.
So how do you adapt your wizard to different campaign types?
Well, the article has some great insights on that.
Let's hear them. Okay, so let's start with those high magic settings.
Okay.
You know those worlds where magic is like everywhere?
Right, like it's just a normal part of life.
Right. How should a wizard approach character creation in that kind of environment?
Well, in a high magic setting, a wizard can really go all out with their magic.
Okay.
There are no limits on resources or anything like that.
Right, it's like a magical playground.
Exactly. But you still need to be strategic, you know?
Okay.
You have to think about what your goals are and how your magic fits into this world where everyone's using magic.
Right. So you need to choose spells that give you a unique advantage.
Exactly. And you have to be smart about how you use your resources.
So it's even more important to be a clever spellcaster in a high magic setting.
Definitely. The article suggests that the diviner could be really powerful in this kind of environment.
Well, really? Why is that?
Well, they can manipulate fate and see into the future.
Right.
Imagine a diviner using their portent ability to change the outcome of a magical duel.
Oh, wow.
Or to spot a hidden danger in a magical city.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They'd be able to stay one step ahead of everyone else.
Right.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about survival-focused campaigns.
Okay.
Those campaigns where resources are scarce and the wilderness is like its own enemy.
Right, where you're constantly fighting to stay alive.
Exactly. How does a wizard adapt to that kind of harsh environment?
Well, in a survival campaign, you can't just rely on your spell book and your fancy wizard tower.
Right. You have to be more practical.
Exactly. You need spells that will actually help you survive.
Like what?
Spells that can create food and water,
Okay.
find shelter,
Oh.
navigate difficult terrain.
So those utility spells that people often overlook,
Right.
they become super important.
Totally.
Spells like create food and water.
Yeah.
Rope trick.
Mm-hmm.
Even Goodberry.
Those can be lifesavers in a survival campaign.
And the Abjurer would probably be a valuable asset in that kind of setting too.
Oh, absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, they have their protective wards. They
Right.
can absorb damage.
So they can protect their party from the elements and dangerous creatures.
Exactly. Imagine an Abjurer using their arcane ward to shield their friends from a blizzard or a swarm of insects.
That's a great image. They become like a walking bunker.
Right.
Okay, now let's talk about combat-heavy campaigns.
Right.
You know those adventures where you're constantly fighting for your life?
Right. Where every encounter could be a battle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does a wizard prepare for that kind of relentless challenge?
Well, combat-heavy campaigns are where the Evoker really shines.
Okay.
They're masters of destruction and battlefield control.
Right, they can just unleash those powerful spells.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Imagine an Evoker using a carefully sculpted fireball to wipe out a whole group of goblins.
Without hurting their allies.
Yep. That's the beauty of sculpt spells.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But in a campaign where you're fighting all the time, the Evoker has to be careful about their resources.
Well, yeah.
Definitely.
They can't just go around.
Blasting everything in sight.
Right. They have to conserve their spell slots and choose their targets carefully.
Exactly. And spells like web, wall of fire, grease, those become really important for controlling the battlefield.
So it's not just about raw power, it's about being smart and tactical.
Right. You have
Yeah.
to think about how you can use your spells to give your party the advantage.
Turn the battlefield into a death trap for your enemies.
Exactly. But even in a combat-heavy campaign, you still need some defensive spells.
Of course.
Mage armor, shield, absorb elements. Those can save your life.
It's all about finding the right balance between offense and defense and utility,
Right.
and adapting your spell choices to the specific challenges you face.
Exactly. And as we've been talking about throughout this whole deep dive, it's not just about picking the right spells and feats.
Right. It's about creating a character who's adaptable and ready for anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. A character who can thrive in any kind of campaign.
This has been such a fascinating look at the wizard subclasses in One D&D.
It has.
We've covered so much ground.
We talked about the core subclasses, the changes coming in Unearthed Arcana,
Multiclassing feats, spells.
different campaign types.
It's been a lot of information, but I think it's been really helpful.
I hope so.
And a big thank you to LitRPG Reads and Kenny Kings for their amazing article.
Yes, thank you.
It's been an awesome resource for us. We'll put a link to it in the show notes so you can check it out yourself.
Definitely.
So now it's time for the big question. Which wizard subclass will you choose for your next adventure?
So many choices.
Will you be an Abjurer, a Diviner, an Evoker, an Illusionist, or a Bladesinger?
It's a tough decision.
Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think.
And here's a question to think about. With all the changes to the Bladesinger,
Okay.
do you think they'll be the most popular choice for wizards in One D&D?
That's a good question.
Or will the other subclasses still hold their own?
What do you think? Let us know in the comments.
We're curious to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, keep rolling those dice, and may your magic be ever potent.